Good evening, I'm Dr. Rayan Aava. The New Hampshire Republican State Representative Susan Delamis yesterday began shouting at abortion rights protesters from the steps of the New Hampshire State House, calling them murderers. And while that is how loud some of the Republican Party is right now about abortion, much of the party is oddly silent. Politico pointed out that Trump, who is usually the first one to take credit for anything, has yet to take credit for Roe's imminent demise. He's pretty much steering clear of it whenever he can. Business Insider asked numerous Republican senators this week about their views on abortion in case of rape and incest, and most of them would not give a straight answer. This week, National Republican Senatorial Committee distributed a 3-page memo of talking points to the party's candidates and incumbents. The tone is shockingly defensive. They directed the candidates to downplay the reality of Roe v. Wade and said that the Republicans do not want to throw doctors and women in jail. Since the GOP evolves around contradiction and lies, it is noteworthy that the Republican-controlled state legislature in Louisiana advanced a bill this week, right after the leak, and that would classify abortion as homicide and allow prosecutors to bring criminal cases against women who end their pregnancy. As the saying goes, watch what they do and not what they say. Abortion is going to be a front and center issue for this year's midterms, not just because it's a wedge issue, but because in every race for the state's Senate seat, those elected officials are about to have potentially more power to decide reproductive law than they have had since 1973. In 4 U.S. Senate races where Democrats are at the most risk of losing a seat, Nevada, Arizona, New Hampshire, and Georgia, all of those incumbents, Democratic senators, have come out very clearly and loudly in defense of reproductive rights this week, making abortion rights not just a central issue of their campaigns, but also one of the main differences between themselves and their opponents, who apparently don't want to talk about this stuff. Former Democratic presidential nominee Hillary Clinton warned that many rights we enjoy as a society and not necessarily as individuals or individually are at risk if the Supreme Court overturns Roe v. Wade.
This opinion is dark, it is incredibly dangerous, and it is not just about a woman's right to choose. It is about much more than that. And I hope people now are fully aware of what we're up against, because the only answer is at the ballot box to elect people who will stand up for every American's rights. And any American who says, look, I'm not a woman, this doesn't affect me, I'm not black, that doesn't affect me, I'm not gay, that doesn't affect me. Once you allow this kind of extreme power to take hold, you have no idea who they will come for next.
Her concerns echoed that of Jim Obergefell, the plaintiff in the landmark Obergefell versus Hodges case that established same-sex marriage as a constitutional right. When asked about Justice Samuel Alito's leaked draft opinion, Obergefell said, and I quote, "I am terrified. I really can't put it any more simply than that I am terrified. I have been asked if I believe what he says in that decision, that this is specific to a woman's right to an abortion and really should not be used on marriage equality. I don't believe that whatsoever, because so many of the things he says in that decision open the door to using those arguments against marriage equality. And where does it stop?" While the Supreme Court draft decision on reproductive rights has promoted fear, Republican-led states appear more emboldened to go after other rights. Missouri is one of the 13 states with a so-called trigger law that would outlaw abortion the minute Roe v. Wade is overturned without anybody doing anything. But it also could criminalize contraception. It is 2022 and we are talking about criminalizing contraception. because under the law, the definition of child's life would begin at conception. Texas, having already effectively banned abortion within its borders, now wants to challenge another Supreme Court ruling which states that all children have a constitutional right to a free public school education regardless of their immigration status. We are seeing a wave of book bans across the country amid concerted efforts to curtail free speech in schools. Lawmakers in more than 24 states have drafted 250 voting bills with restrictive provisions, according to Brennan Center. And this past Friday, a federal appeals court reinstated Florida's Senate Bill 90 that would restrict drop boxes and voting by mail and make it illegal to help people register to vote or to hand out water and food as people wait to vote. Who does this? As Secretary Clinton said, I hope people now are fully aware what we are up against. Ruth Benji is a history professor at New York University. She is the author of Strongman Mussolini to the Present and an expert in democracy. In response to some people in America believing the canceling of Roe v. Wade to be an isolated matter, Ruth Benji reiterated Hillary Clinton's comments, saying that it is backed by history. She said the tragedy with authoritarianism is not only country after country said it was not going to happen there, or our democracy is strong, or we are not going to have a coup, but when it did start to happen, people either did not see the warning signs or they thought it was not going to apply to them. We are at the point where we are beginning to lose our rights. Authoritarianism is about control of speech, the bans of what we can say or read. It is about control of our bodies. It is about control of sexuality and about taking away our rights to decide our future. If you believe that abortion is wrong, but you do not necessarily support all other measures, you must understand that a vote for this or political support for it endangers other rights, because these things are never taken in isolation. The policing of sexuality has always been part of the history of authoritarianism. Even Stalin, who was supposed to be a communist, where gender equality is said to be a core belief, banned abortion. Other perennial strongmen always target is the LGBT community. And it is no accident that GOP and Mike Pence attended the demographic summit of Viktor Orban in Hungary, where he openly said that he hoped abortion rights would be appealed. This is consistent with Orban's remodeling of the population belief. The GOP is aligning itself with the idea of wanting only certain kinds of babies. This week, Louisiana House Committee voted for a bill that would allow the state to charge people who have abortions with homicide. The bill also criminalizes homicide charges for anyone who aids an abortion. It also changes the state's definition of a person to include any fertilized egg, potentially criminalizing things like in vitro fertilization and in certain forms of contraception. Beyond that, the law would also allow Louisiana legislators to ignore court rulings that it disagrees with. The measure was approved in a 7-2 vote just 2 days after Supreme Court draft decision to overturn Roe v. Wade leaked. It is perhaps the most extreme piece of legislation to arrive in recent days, but it would not be the last or the most deviously creative. On Thursday, the Tennessee Governor Bill Lee signed a law that increases the criminal penalty for distributing medication abortion through the mail or through telehealth. It makes providing medication abortions a felony, punishable by $50,000 fine. The only exception is that prescription made by a doctor in person. Now, the new law is particularly notable because medicated abortion is poised to become a major battlefield in terms of reproductive rights if Roe v. Wade is overturned, as it is expected to be. Since 2020, medicated abortions have accounted for more than half of all abortions performed in the United States. Their popularity has increased since the start of the pandemic. The pills do not have to be taken in a clinical setting. Patients can take them in their own homes discreetly. It's a 5-day course of medication that can be mailed in an ordinary, unassuming envelope. Therefore, this option might become increasingly popular in the post-Roe v. Wade United States. Add the fact that last year the FDA allowed the medication to be prescribed via telehealth and distributed by mail. In December, the agency made that COVID-era rule permanent. We still have a choice, all of us do. We can choose which side of the history to be on. This is not a matter of Republican versus Democrats in a traditional sense. It is not a simple policy issue. It's not about God, religion, or baby killing, or anything else for that matter. It is about our innate human rights. I was born in Iran. I have lived the difference between democracy and autocracy. And believe me when I say that you do want democracy. To see more videos like this, click the subscribe button right here on the screen. And if you want to support my work, subscribe to my Medium account where I cover the most important topics daily. Also, look for my podcast coming very soon.